Chapter 11. The Subtractor. Sleed was worried for a bunch of reasons. First of all, Big Chuck was really upset. He did not yell or cuss at Sleed when he found out that things were not going according to plan, especially considering how much firepower and men he had sent to help out. But he knew Big Chuck well enough to recognize the tension in his voice. He informed the boss of everything that was going on, but assured him that they still had this under control. There was no way the guy could escape. He had no contact with the outside world, and as soon as darkness fell, Sleed and his men would use their night vision gear and pick the redneck off with no more issues. For your sake, there better not be, Big Chuck promised. I expect to report as soon as you have everything cleaned up. Sleed hung up the phone just in time to place his radio into chase mode along with everyone else. He keyed his mic up a second later and spoke. Radio check over. One by one, guys began to check in, giving their last name. And that is the second reason that he was worried. Only 9 guys checked in. He called out for Team 1 at the entrance to report, but they were dead silent and would not answer. He simply refused to believe that one man could have taken out all 7 of his soldiers. That just wasn't plausible. It had to be because they missed switching their radios to chase mode. But all 7? That wasn't likely either. He started combing through the house, looking for some signs of who this guy was. He found a stack of mail on a desk and quickly learned the redneck's identity. He was unnerved at the last name that greeted him from an internet bill. Slaughter. It was a coincidence, to be sure, but considering he had lost contact with so many guys, it was. Then there was the gunsmith shop in the back of the house. It was the workplace of a seriously passionate shooter. There were canisters of gunpowder and equipment for reloading ammunition. Paper targets with bullet holes adorned the walls on thumbtacks, with handwritten notes in the margins about loads and ambient temperatures at the time of shooting. Was there any wind or was it still? Ballistics information like velocity and drop was scribbled into neat rows in a notebook on the counter. This guy was a real deal. Surprisingly, they found little in the way of guns. There was one low-end AR-15 and a Savage bolt-action rifle in an open safe. There were 3 other nondescript handguns as well, but that was it. That is when Mason's right-hand man, Pete, made an observation. The back of the room seems shorter in length than it should be, he said. They spent the next 10 minutes looking deeper into the room, and Pete found a release on a bookshelf loaded with shooting manuals. The bookshelf rotated out of the way to reveal a hidden room with an impressive arsenal of gears. Handguns and rifles of all sorts hung on the walls like trophies and artwork. These were things Mr. Slaughter was proud of, it was clear. The hidden room caused Sleed to worry even more. But nothing worried him more than the silence on the radio proclaiming 7 missing men. 8, if you included the first guy that vanished from underneath their noses. If Mr. Slaughter had somehow escaped from the valley, well, then the cops should have been here by now. Or it could be possible that he had been wounded and was even now dying or already dead somewhere in the darkness near the entrance to the canyon. There was still only one course of action despite these things that worried him. As soon as darkness arrived, they would put on night vision goggles from the box in the van out front, and they would stalk this guy through until he was dead or they found his corpse. 20 minutes later, darkness finally did arrive. He was about to gather his remaining men and start combing through the woods when an unfamiliar voice called out to him from across the radio. And that need to hurt someone suddenly became even stronger. Chapter break. Perspective change. With one eye looking through the scope and his finger on the trigger, DJ began to taunt the people trying to kill him over the radio. Hey, stupid! Not the rest of you idiots waiting to ambush me. I'm talking about the big dumb guy in charge. DJ resisted the urge to call him much stronger names, thinking of Cassie as he restrained himself. Since he was not likely to live much longer than the next few minutes, he felt he would honor her one last time and not use any profanity. I have to hand it to you. You're one scary-looking dude, like a T-Rex with a gun. But you know what? After following you around and watching you operate for the last few hours, I could tell, just like that big scary dinosaur, your brain's not much bigger than a walnut. There was something to be said for talking down to your adversary as if they were a child, DJ thought. He could have chosen to be brash and exhibit over-the-top testosterone-filled machoism, but to be talked to like you were a child often yielded two results. For one, it tended to incite anger more quickly. How dare you talk down to me? Do you not take me seriously enough? The angrier you can make your opponent, the more apt they were to be guided by emotion rather than common sense, and that translated into making mistakes. Secondly, your opponent tends to not treat you seriously enough, and they are often led into overconfidence. From the way the T-Rex-looking leader stomped around when he first saw him back on the road, treated seriously. So DJ felt sure this tactic would get the desired results. Silence answered him over the radio, so he tried again. Now, usually big bruisers like you are so hopped up on steroids, your brain can't process simple math. So let me run through some equations for you. See, you arrived at my beautiful home with 20 guys. There were 3 morons already there, so 20 plus 3 is 23. DJ's voice dripped with pure sarcasm now. But see, I've always been a fan of subtraction. So when your little combat line moved through my woods, I dropped out of a tree like Batman and smashed in their heads with a rock. You should have seen it, man. That guy's heads popped like a zit. Stuff went everywhere. I got your dude's brains all over me. I think some of it even went in my mouth. Man, it was nasty. DJ was having fun now. Still nothing in reply, so DJ continued. 23 minus 1 is 22. DJ taunted into the radio. Hey, T-Rex, you could try to maintain radio silence if you want, but I know you're there. That's what broadcast all on the radio actually means. Finally, a voice spoke up across the radio. You think you're a funny man, huh? DJ assumed it must be T-Rex talking now. Oh, no, sir, Mr. T-Rex, sir. I'm just helping you out with some math. DJ continued his trash talking much like a 12-year-old playing a video game, minus the profanity, of course. You see, what I did next was head back down to where you had those 5 guys guarding the entrance. Do you know, I walked up right there in the middle of them and took them all out like they were sleeping. All 5 of them. What were their names again? Let's see, Carter, Ash, Hernandez. I can't remember them all. Point is, they're gone now. And 22 minus 5 is 17. And why would I believe you, funny man? Well, you don't have to, Mr. T-Rex, sir. That's your choice. But I wanted you to know I could have escaped with ease at that point. I had no one in my way. But I figured, why leave the party early? I mean, the dance has just started. Stop talking, T-Rex snarled. DJ was clearly starting to get under his skin. But I'm not done with my math lesson yet. You know those 2 guys you had head back to the entrance in that white pickup? Yeah, they're gone too. 17 minus 2 is 15. Man, it's like killing you guys is my superpower or something. Maybe I am a superhero. DJ continued to hold the aim point of the thermoscope on the other sniper, who remained clueless he was being targeted, his right index finger just resting on the trigger. You listen to me, funny man, T-Rex said. You know, if I was a superhero, DJ interrupted, what do you think my name should be? The sarcasm continued to flow. I know. How about the Subtractor? The voice on the other end of the radio seethed with anger. I'm going to pull your arms off like wings off a fly. I'm going to rip your head off and, oh, I know, and poop down my neck, DJ interrupted him. And I'm going to give you a shot at that, I promise. But see, I still have one more piece of math to give you. DJ adjusted his point of aim to be 5 inches above his target. However, his target was no longer the sniper on the porch. You see, a little while ago, I put a knife into the heart of another one of your men. And 15 minus 1 is 14. And guess what? Now I have one of your pretty little sniper rifles. DJ applied pressure to the trigger, and the rifle responded with a heartwarming, silencer-restricted thwap. Since a sniper rifle that could see in the dark was such a game changer, DJ could no longer be brought to bear against him. He decided that his first round should take it out of the equation, and it did. The .30 caliber round smashed into the side of its target and punched its way through like a wrecking ball, igniting a couple of rounds loaded into the weapon in the process. It lit up in DJ's thermal scope in a white-hot flash of heat and sparks. The guy on the porch jerked to his left and abandoned his weapon. He scrambled to his feet and bolted away from him along the front porch. DJ's next round took him between the shoulder blades and exited through his chest. Warm blood splattered outward from him in a heated explosion on the thermal scope, and DJ quickly panned right towards the two by the road. Thwap! Thwap! Two heads exploded in answer, and he swung back to the cabin, searching for another target. 11 guys remaining, 17 rounds left. Come on, he thought to himself. Show me a head. T-Rex began to scream into the radio. He's at the number 2 position. To the radio. He's at the number 2 position in the field. In the field. From 250 yards away to his left, towards the back of the canyon and the place he called Paradise, silenced gunfire began raining bullets into his position. The rounds impacted tree limbs and aspen trunks, sending debris flying in all directions. He could hear them whistling as they passed by a foot over his head, or closer. They smacked the ground around him, kicking up dirt and leaves. DJ flinched from the hail of bullets impacting around him. He resisted the urge to swing left and engage this new threat, and instead tried to keep his focus on the cabin. The occupants, including T-Rex, might try to use this as an opportunity to leave and flank him to his right. His suspicions were found out to be correct, as two figures sprinted from the front door, facing the entrance to the canyon, and tore in the direction of the trees. DJ did his best to concentrate against the onslaught of projectiles whizzing past him. Thwap! The base, and lay there unmoving. He took aim at the next guy, flinching from a bullet smacking the leaves in front of him, and his second shot missed. The third, however, clipped the fleeing soldier, and he went down as well. He continued to crawl forward, so DJ aimed carefully and set a round through the man's head. Glowing blood splattered outward across the drive. 9 guys left, 13 rounds remaining. Bullets rained all around him, and one tore through the back of his vest, grazing his left shoulder. He winced at the pain, and he knew if he did not engage those targets to his left soon, he was going to die. It was dark, and at this distance, he was practically invisible. But put enough bullets down range, and the law of averages says that you will eventually hit your target. It was only a matter of time before he got drilled. He started to swing left to answer the gunfire with rounds of his own, but then he held off. Back when he was a boy, shortly before his father died, he was given the task of building a doghouse. He was given the task of building a doghouse for the family pet. It was odd that in the midst of a gunfight, with bullets tearing past him, his brain somehow traveled backwards in time to that moment. But there he was. It was a Sunday, and the family had just gotten back from church. He was standing in front of a pile of lumber next to his father. DJ had begged for a dog, and his father grudgingly gave in. His dad had wanted him to appreciate the responsibility that was required, however. The dog was purchased on a Saturday. He was to build a doghouse on Sunday, and he had agreed to this while gleefully holding the new puppy in his arms just the day before. Today, looking at all that stacked lumber, he suddenly realized the enormity of what he had agreed to. He didn't know the first thing about carpentry. He was only 10 for crying out loud. "But, Dad," he exclaimed, "there's a lot that needs to be done to build a doghouse." "Yep," his father agreed. "You know where to start." "I know," came the reply. He watched his father turn to walk back towards the house and the waiting football game on the TV. He called over his shoulder as he went, "Tools are in the shed. Put them back where you got them when you're done." DJ turned back to look at the impossible task he had agreed to. From behind him, his father called out one more time, "Hey, son." DJ looked back to see his father on the steps with the screen door already open and one foot in the house. "I'll give you just one piece of advice," he said with a slight grin. "Do one thing, do it very well, then move on." With that, his father vanished into the house. A moment later, and the sound of the Denver Broncos could be heard in the background on the TV. DJ snapped back to the here and now. Bullets passed by all around, creating chaos in the small stand of aspen. In his head, however, He was suddenly calm and focused. He turned his attention back to the cabin just in time to see 3 more figures emerge. 2 out of the front and 1 out of the back. The 2 at the front would flank around to the right, and the other would reinforce the ones firing at him from the left. Thwap! Thwap! The rifle jumped in his hands twice, and both soldiers out front quickly met the same fate as the previous 2. DJ was a machine of pure focus now. 7 guys left. 11 rounds remaining. Another round clipped him, tugging at the boot on his left foot and tearing out a chunk of rubber on the sole of his heels. He ignored it easily. Do one thing, do it well, move on. He processed the situation at hand. The 3 original dirtbags were for sure in the cabin. T-Rex would want to keep Soul Patch safe and the other 2 out of the way. From the gunfire to his left, he was certain that he counted only 2 weapons. The guy that bolted out the back of the house would add to that and make more. T-Rex. And DJ was willing to bet he was holed up in the cabin with the other 3. He felt that the risk of being flanked from the cabin was now minimal, so he refocused his aim and pivoted his rifle to the left. That's when a ricocheting bullet struck him in the head.